So there is definitely a difference between these two. Let's go and find out what's the difference between the CX-50 and the CX-5 and which one should you buy. You're watching General Cars. I'm hosting the Mazda CX-50 Meridian Edition and the Mazda CX-5 Turbo. Real quick, I want to give a big shout out to Mazda of North Miami for providing me the vehicle I was able to show you guys today. These guys have a wide variety of vehicles ranging from the Miata all the way to the all-new Mazda CX-90. They also have some nice deals going on right now with the majority of their cars in inventory. So if you're looking for a nice, affordable luxury car, I would highly recommend you guys check out Mazda of North Miami. Of course, the CX-50 and the CX-5 are going to have their own personalities. However, there are still a lot of similarities that I believe people are still being a little bit confused with. For instance, the powertrains are very similar. The dimensions of these vehicles are pretty similar as well. So there's really going to be a little bit of a difficulty to understand what is a true difference. Now, of course, ride control is going to be quite different, as well as interior quality in both of these vehicles. And I really think that we should take an in-depth look of the qualities between the CX-5 and the CX-50's interior before we get to driving. Right, now sitting in the inside of the CX-5. This is a little bit older, of course, than the CX-50. Granted, the CX-50 just came out recently. This one has been out since 2017, at least this interior design. So yeah, you're gonna notice that there's a few things that are older in here. Of course, the design is older, materials feel a little bit cheaper, but that's pretty much it. There's really not much of a major difference in here that I can really say. But in terms of amenities in here, they are virtually identical. I'm not gonna go crazy in depth with this thing because I have literally a CX-5 that's exactly the same thing as this one in my YouTube already. But the amenities here do feel very familiar to, you know, the eyes when you're sitting in this or compared to the CX-50. The only difference is that the CX-50 just feels better, I guess, and that makes sense, and a little bit more modern. But I'm not gonna really go crazy in depth. Backseat space is good, trunk space is really good. You know, you're just basically comparing apples to apples at this point of what style you want or what you really want inside of your vehicle. The only thing that the CX-50 does have better going on is that the trunk space is slightly better. And also it does have a full panoramic sunroof and a 360 camera. That's as far as I know right now, that what I can think of. But of course, once I jump into CX-50, I'll be able to compare a little bit better. But really, you have cooled seats here, heated seats here, dual zone climate control, radio and volume knob controls right here in the bottom. You also do have a 6-speed automatic transmission, and you have the same infotainment system as the CX-50 in here. So there's really not going to be a major difference in here you're going to notice right away. You do also have radar cruise control, and the buttons are exactly the same as placed as the CX-50. So there's only going to be nitpicky little things here and there that I'm going to point out with the CX-50 that it has compared to this one it doesn't have, but that's it. I mean, you even still have a head-up display in here. Then the CX-50 has the same thing as well. At least, well, I'm going to find out in the Meridian edition. So, and power is the same thing. So you're not going to really notice a major difference really between a lot of them, just mostly what style do you prefer. So obviously this one is older, so if you want more modern, you want to go for the CX-50. If you want to go for a more rugged vehicle, the CX-50 is there for you. If you want to just go for a more urban style, you want to go for a more comforting style, the CX-5 is for you. All right, now sitting in the inside of the CX-50. It's really nice. I gotta give it to you. I gotta give it to Mazda, generally. I mean, this design in this thing is really, really nice. I like the utilitarian feel more on this thing rather than the CX-5. I'm more of a truck person in the end of the day, so having a more rugged interior like this one, it does fit in my book a lot better. I've considered buying one of these things, but of course, $46,000 is pretty expensive, and I'm not gonna pay that money. So, I'm just gonna sit here and test drive this thing and just tell you what I think on a vehicle that I can't afford. Anyways, the gauges do look very familiar, but you can tell that there's a little bit of rugged detail in here. It's of course half analog, half digital, same exact thing like with the Mazda CX-5. It's almost identical. Like literally when you sit in the CX-5 and you sit in this, there's only little nitpicks in here. Same thing when it comes to the assortment of this interior. The design is completely different. Even the color of the seats are completely different. I wish this thing had a black headliner. But anyways, the AC controls, it has dual zone climate control, thank God. It does have Apple CarPlay, thank God. And it also has the same exact infotainment, just the only difference, the screen's slightly bigger. It looks bigger to me in my eyes. And of course the AC vents are a little weird in this one. It's like the whole thing moves by itself. It's weird, but it's functional. So I'll give it that. The AC controls exactly in the same exact placement, which I love. I'm very happy that Mazda is not implementing AC controls inside the screen like a lot of companies, Ford. Anyways, I like the fact that it's physical. That I'm 100% happy with, because if anything were to happen, of course, you at least still can control your AC. Also, you don't have cooled seats in here. I know the CX-50 does come with it, but I guess this one doesn't have it, which is weird. And given the fact that this is $46,000, I would think it's here, but it's not, unfortunately. Pretty much all the controls down here are, again, identical. The only difference is, of course, the cup holders are not up in the front, which I prefer, rather than being in the rear like the CX-5. The radio controls and the volume controls look different, of course, but they function the same exact way as the CX-5. So literally, when you're jumping in a CX-5 and you jump into this, you're gonna know what to do right away. The only difference you're gonna feel is literally just the design of the interior, and that's it. But what I do like a lot is that this one does have the panoramic sunroof. And yes, this is the first Mazda that does have a panoramic sunroof. Everyone was going crazy about that, even though panoramic sunroofs have been there since, I don't know, maybe since I was born. They finally have it. So that's a nice luxury feature. And I really do like the design of these seats. A lot of people complain about this strip in the middle here, this seat, that you feel it between your buttocks. I don't feel it really. I guess my jeans just can't, really don't make me feel anything there. So I don't really feel anything. I can't complain about it. I feel maybe slightly here in the back, but not really by much at all. I really can't complain about that. The window switches and everything are virtually the same, just looks a little bit different. The steering wheel is the same exact function as the CX-5, just of course they look more nicer. And it's not metal. If it was metal, it would be so cool, but obviously that'd be expensive. But it feels like metal at the same time. It's really good. Radar cruise control is standard, by the way, on the CX-50. That's pretty much it. I fit in the back seat phenomenally well. I actually fit here better. I feel I fit better in here. Headroom is good. It's a little bit less headroom since this thing is a little bit shorter. It's kind of built like a Tacoma, I guess you could say, but it doesn't sit like a Tacoma. That's the thank God. Really anything else, I could talk about the trunk all day. The trunk has really good space there. It is wider than the CX-5, but I believe it's a little bit shorter. I'll put the numbers there for the trunk as well. It does automatically open up, by the way, too, so just in case that was something in your book. And this turbocharged motor produces 250 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque. Same exact power as the CX-5. They're literally virtually the same, just the platform is different, but they drive very similarly. And of course, this thing is quick. I feel that the CX-5 is a little faster though. Like I feel more pull in that thing rather than this thing, which I'm surprised about. But I mean, they're the same power. Probably the CX-5 is a little bit lighter. This one is definitely wider though. I will say that. This one has more of a wider stance, lower stance, even though this thing is built for off-roading. I love the stance of this thing so much. Like the exterior is just spot on gorgeous. They did such a phenomenal job in here. But anyways, we got to get to driving, so let's take it for a spin. Right, now driving the CX-5, how is it feeling? Well, compared to the CX-50, of course, you're going to notice that there are older amenities in the CX-5 rather than the CX-50. And it's not entirely too bad of a thing, but you're going to notice that, yes, it is a little bit dated. There is a plan. Mazda does plan on actually bringing out a new generation of the CX-5 at some point in the future. I'm not sure when exactly, but it's rumored to be going around right now. The CX-5 is too good of a seller for them to just discontinue it and just not have any CX-5 anymore. So it really wouldn't make sense if Mazda were to discontinue a car like this. Now, in terms of power, I love the power in these things. This is the 2.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, the Skyactiv Turbo that came from the CX-9. Now it's joining down to the rest of the Mazda lineup. Even the Mazda 3, it has a lot of power. 250 pound-feet of horsepower, I'm sorry, not pound-feet of torque. 250 horsepower, 320 pound-feet of torque with premium fuel. So it is a really healthy motor, and it has a lot of torque to ask for. And with the amenities in here, it has heated seats, has cooled seats, has really nice leather seats as well. So you're gonna actually be pretty comfortable driving this thing going around. I see a lot of people driving this thing around, and I actually do have some relatives that actually own a CX-5, and they absolutely love the car. So they are a humongous fan of this car, and I don't blame them, to be honest with you. This thing is a really smooth riding SUV, and really compared to majority of other SUVs out there, even the CX-50, this one is a little bit smoother. It does handle really dynamically well. Remember, it has independent rear suspension. It does have good suspension in the front end as well. And when it comes to Mazda, of course, they want to make sure that you have the best driving experience that you could possibly have in whatever car you drive. And that's from the Miata, of course, and all the way going from the CX-90 now. You're still going to get a really good driving experience, and the CX-5 is a really great example of showing a really fun driving experience you can have, not with just power like this, but also with just handling. You know, that's the just purity of this car. It's a really good handling car as an SUV, and as a car that you're just going to mainly go to point A to point B. That's pretty much it. You're going to also notice that the gauges in here are very similar to the CX-50. So that's something that you're not going to be really surprised with. Half analog, half digital. The first time that they came fully digital was with the CX-90. I'm sure that's going to start going down with the rest of the lineup eventually. And you're also going to notice it has the same exact infotainment. Granted, because this is the 2023 model, all Mazdas have pretty much the same infotainment system now, except for the Miata. The Miata has the older infotainment, but we're not talking about the Miata today. So you're going to notice that leg space is a little bit smaller in this one than the CX-50, but the CX-50 does have less headroom than this particular one, just mainly because of the shape and also the profile. I'm not trying to think of the word, but we'll just say profile of the vehicle. This one is a lot taller in the inside than the CX-50. Not that it's cramped in the inside of the CX-50. I still fit perfectly fine in there, but this one is definitely going to be slightly more comfortable when it comes to headroom, but I do like the legroom better in the CX-50 more, and I fit just fine. So it's not really that big of a deal. Also, you're going to notice that the trunk is going to be a little bit bigger in the CX-50, noticing that it's a little bit wider, but it's going to be a little bit shorter in terms of trunk space. So it's like a hit or miss when it comes to things like that, and it's really up to you whether you want more of an urban driving vehicle like the CX-5, or you want more of a rugged style vehicle of the CX-50. So we're gonna take a spin on that right now. Right now, driving the CX-50, it's pretty darn good. I honestly really like the seating position a lot more in this thing than the CX-5. It's not that it's much of a terrible difference, to be really honest with you. It's just more of a preference, to be honest. I like sitting lower, and this one I'm more than capable of sitting lower. And I like seeing a good view, and I also like seeing the hood. And you know, since this is a rugged type of vehicle, this of course has a more bulging hood, so it basically check marks everything. The only thing that I don't like is the fact that I have to raise my arm all the way up here in order for me to hold the steering wheel. I usually drive like this quite a bit, so this is a little bit uncomfortable for me, but it's not like it's the end of the world type of thing. At least the armrest here, it's not terrible. And more normally when I usually drive like this, typically 90% of the time, I can't complain about that whatsoever. This particular CX-50 doesn't have all the options like I thought it would, since this is a Meridian edition, and this one particularly cost $46,000. Thank you, inflation. It doesn't have all the options that I thought it would have. Number one, it doesn't have cooled seats, it doesn't have a 360 camera. At least it has a panoramic sunroof, and it does have a turbo motor, which has 250 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque. There you go. And that's pretty much it. And mostly everything here does feel very familiar, like the CX-5. Of course, there are different settings and everything and stuff. Of course, the buttons look different. The steering wheel definitely does look different. Even the gauges look a little bit different as well. I like the fact that I like the design of these gauges a lot more than the CX-5. It's a bit wider. It's a little bit more clear. and it does look a little bit more rugged. The entire interior looks generally more rugged. The only thing I wish it had was the black headliner. This particular one doesn't have the black headliner on, but at least it has a panoramic sunroof, and I love the design of this interior so much more. I'm a more rugged person. I love driving trucks, so this interior fits the book really well, at least in my personality. And honestly speaking, it does still drive like a car, but it definitely does feel a little bit more rugged. Like you don't feel like you're driving a normal SUV. You feel like you're driving more of a Outlander SUV. Kind of think of it like a Subaru Outback, but this one feels more rugged. That's the best way I can describe it. Of course, making the choice between the CX-5 and the CX-50 is going to be a difficult one, but there are some things I will point out really quick. For one, the CX-5 is more of a city goer that is going to go for more of a comforting style, while the CX-50 is more of a rugged overland style vehicle. Now, I will say this personally for me, the CX-50 is so much more comfortable in the seating position department than the CX-5, at least for me being 6 feet tall. But this all goes down to your own preference. The CX-5 as well as the CX-50 are both really good vehicles, and I really think you should check both out. Until next time. What the fuck is that, bro? Is that the new Amazon electric truck? What the fuck? Okay. Right, now driving the CX-5, how does it feel?